Preparing to live stream.
Fancy.
And then let's hit record as well, because I made that mistake last time. Hi.
Hello.
All right, let's get this party started. Well, hello, marketers, and welcome to the September edition of Team CMO's S'mores Campfire Chats. I'm your host, Liz Lathan, Chief Community Officer for Team CMO. These campfire conversations happen once a month, and Team CMO members get to be here with us inside the Zoom. We also broadcast the first 30 minutes live to our YouTube for our top of funnel engagement, if you will, go marketing. Then we cut the broadcast at the 30-minute mark, allowing for our members to have a conversation inside the Zoom. Today, I'm joined by Elise Keith and Dave Mastronardi with the new rules for work. We got connected through the magic of LinkedIn and found that we have quite a bit in common when it comes to designing more collaborative ways of working. And Elise and Dave have spent the last year running collaboration and creativity experiments with a wide range of participants. I am excited to learn more about how those have been going and what is next with the findings. Welcome, you two. What context setting have I missed that you'd like to bring up before we dive in?
Maybe just a little bit on the background on what New Rules for Work is and how we got started. Also done through the magic of the internet. So we have been researching how technology and how place, among other things, impact creativity and collaboration. Back in March, a couple of years ago, we were all sent home, and we were doing much more online and virtual collaboration than ever before. In fact, it was all online and virtual. And so a year later, 2 years later, a study comes out and says, if you want to be creative and be collaborative, you got to get back in the office. And we didn't know whether or not that was right. What we did investigate was the methodology that particular study used. And it was very, let's say, simple, straightforward question asking of creative uses for Frisbee or for bubble wrap. And just reading the rest of the methodology, we said, this doesn't look like anything that so Elise and I, we run meetings, we study creativity, we are up on creative best practices. We said, this doesn't look anything like we would do with a client in a room. There's no stakes. There's nothing to spark any kind of thought. And so I wrote about it on the internet, and really Elise responded, and here we are. A year. We've been working on the New Rules for Work for a year and a half now, and we're at the tail end, I would say, of the experiment phase.
So Elise, you came in because you saw a post, and then what happened?
Yeah, so Dave was working on being provocative. Let's just say my kind take on his basically unkind attack of this study. But in my work, I work a lot with academic researchers, and I work a lot with companies who are working through putting in place very intentional communication and collaboration, and thought, maybe rather than just calling each other wrong on the internet, we might work together. So we formed an academic advisory board and a master facilitator advisory board and designed this new experiment. And we are now entering the final days of the experiment phase. So if you are curious about this experiment, I encourage you to come and join us. There are actually 2 sessions being run tomorrow where you can experience the magic yourself. But it's this fascinating mix and cooperation between academia, which has this, in this particular methodology, desire to isolate all the variables. Right. So we do surveys to figure out, how does psychological safety, neurodivergence, affect, familiarity with each other in the tech, how does that impact what happens when we come together? We run a 60-minute creative brainstorming, creative problem solving session, take all kinds of data from that, and then we capture some stuff at the end. And while we can't tell you too much about what we've learned, because it is actively under experimentation and you should absolutely come and experiment with us, there are a couple of things we have noticed over the course of this work. And so we are looking forward to January, where we can share all of those details and then help people apply them to the events and the workplaces that we're forming for next year. Because, that an original study was a reaction to what had happened with the pandemic. We are still absolutely in a state of flux as a working communities, as countries. So how do we use what we've learned to then set our intentions and our ways of working going out in 2024 is really our focus going forward.
So let's bring this down to a little bit more concrete. You told me a story about creativity in in-person events versus remote events with, mural versus boxes and sticks. Can you share that story with our audience?
I don't remember what that story was.
Dave does.
No. I was thinking the same thing. I'm trying. What's the story?
Okay. So the story that you told me was it was a creativity challenge, experiment around who could be more creative. The remote folks had to be creative, collaborating with a mural board. The in-person folks had like boxes and sticks and they were trying to come up with an executive presentation. And which one in the end was more executive ready and which one was more creative?
Yeah, so that is the nature of the experiment itself, right? So some of the experiments run online, some of them run in person, and actually some of them in a hybrid. And one of our key findings, I think the key finding, is that intentionality trumps proximity. So when the mission is clear, when the goal is clear, and the process to achieving that goal is laid out, every group has come up with a proposal so far. You might join us and disprove that one. but so far, every single group has come up with a proposal. And that phrasing is phrasing from Michael Arena, who studies innovation lifecycle, and he found the same thing.
So we were just doing it organically, in one of the ways that we converged in kind of fit into what Michael is saying there. As we were working on we've got two agendas, right? We're running two experiments in three different modes. So we have an A and a B agenda that we run: virtual, in-person, and hybrid. So we use two different tools as well. And so one of the tools is more free. It's a digital whiteboard. It's that infinite scroll that usually people who are in it for the first time, if they're not familiar with something, they'll like it. They'll get lost. And so we were, as we were beta testing our agenda, we were running into this, and we said, we really have to fix this. Otherwise, we might have to get rid of this platform as an option. And so what we ended up developing was to keep with the same term, a very intentional design that allowed us to put these participants in this space that, if we hadn't designed it with so much intentionality, they would have been lost. Quite literally, like they wouldn't have known where to go on the board to start the process. And we actually found that we could put them in there with the right instructions, the right visual cues of where to go next, and we didn't have to facilitate anything. So we gave them a little bit of a primer. We said, now go into this tool that for many people was the first time that they were ever in that tool, a technically challenging tool. And they came out on the other end with what we had asked of them. And that was surprising to us upon initial discovery, but also this repetition that nobody has failed at it, which, coming from the world, we come in facilitation. We have to, okay, time's up. Now go on to the next thing. And let me give you a little bit of context about that. We didn't have to do that. We just left them on their own.
And it's stunning.
Yeah,
I just,
how important that is though for the in-person part as well, because I mean, I just think about relating that to an event. If when you take a bunch of people, throw them in a ballroom, turn on the music and give them a drink and be like, have at it. Like, again, there's just no intentionality around a journey to bring them through. So whether you're trying to accomplish a goal or it's an event for networking, they don't know what to do in the room. And so when you even design that digitally or in person to achieve a goal, even if the goal is networking, especially if the goal is networking, like, I think that that's so important that you can take these findings and expand them beyond just work, but actually into play.
Absolutely. And what we found that I thought was especially stunning with this is that when the intentionality and you know what we did there in that platform is really wayfinding, right? So if you were at a networking event and you're in the space and you've got some prompting about what it means to have a successful networking outcome,
right,
and some way to help navigate, ideally playfully, through that journey towards a result, it works even when some of the people aren't down with it. Mm-hmm. So we've had participants who are like, you know, I'm not doing this. We've had some of those. Shockingly, we had one person in the middle of a active experiment in person stand up and decide that she didn't want to play anymore. Just went and sat somewhere else and took a phone call. Wow. Like, it was a surprising and stunning kind of behavioral choice in an environment where they were clearly also trying to network. And their team succeeded anyway. Right. So it's resilient. That kind of light way. And we talk about, you know, having laid out the plans and made it very intentional. I think the other key point that Dave brought up there is we did less. You know, we got out of the way. We used fewer words. We intervened less often. And those things helped the groups come together more as they made that journey.
So what are the challenges that you're giving these teams in an experiment? You're calling it, you're saying the team was successful. What is it that they're trying to accomplish?
We're asking them to come up with creative solutions to a challenge topic, which, again, because we have a couple going on tomorrow, we're hoping some people maybe register for it. We don't want to divulge exactly what the topic is, but it's something that anyone would be familiar with. So no, it's not intimidating. It's not necessarily complicated, but we are giving people something that some people may be thinking about it, but to go from almost zero, let's just say, at the beginning of the hour of the experiment, to come up with some kind of a solution to that challenge at the end of it. And we ask certain elements of it. We give some structure to the way that they should describe their ideas or their concept, and even how they might put them together. But so we're emphasizing what is a creative solution to this problem.
What have you found as far as team formation? I know you had mentioned challenges with fast forming teams, and especially now in a hugely global distributed workforce where we have a project, we're going to throw a team together, we have something to execute against. What have you seen as far as successes in creating fast forming teams?
So I think there are a couple of things that the experiment helps us see, and there are many things that it doesn't, because it is such a time constrained environment and such an artificial environment, right? 60 minutes, you're doing this thing, zoop, zoop, zoop. But we are seeing strong differences between people who know each other and how they behave versus people who have never met. We are not seeing huge differences in participation levels beyond the couple of outliers, you know, the people who explicitly refuse to play. But so in terms of rapid team formation, which is really one of the focuses for our event in January, right? What do these things teach us about how we individually need to make our work go so that we are successful? And what does all of this tell us about how we can come together as teams really quickly? Because teams are shrinking across the workplace, and they're being pulled in all kinds of different directions. So they're being sort of priority whipped. And even if they are in the person, somebody on your team probably isn't. So that need to rapidly form is increasing. So what we find is that when the teams that don't know each other are coming together, they become, not always, but often a little bit less creative. Mm-hmm. So there's a little bit of dampening of some of the original sparkiness as people socially adjust to whatever the normative level is.
Are they uncomfortable with feeling like vulnerable with strangers? Is it something like that? Or have you determined?
We haven't looked at all the data specifically yet. So we'll have to find out. But what I have heard anecdotally from people is, yeah, I really wanted to go for this idea, but the rest of the group seemed stuck on.
A lot of people they're being nice too, right? For some of these groups that have never met before. And that's certainly something that's natural and normal. Why don't we take a little bit of your idea and a little bit of your idea and a little bit of your idea, just so everybody feels included and feels nice. And look, there's benefit to that. Does it produce high creativity? We don't know yet. We can tell you in January.
Okay, so what about in I guess let's bring it to the real world. Have you made any determinations yet on how to best work in a hybrid environment where some of your people are in person and some of your team members are remote?
Yeah, so again, it's intentionality, right? So Dave and I have facilitated almost all of these sessions so far. We have a couple now that are being facilitated by other people, which is very exciting. And as the person running it, I can tell you that a hybrid setting is really, really challenging. It's really difficult to do that well. And what I've found to be really difficult about it is not connecting the people over distance. Right. And that part with clear intentionality seems to work just fine. We can help people do breakouts. We can help them work through the process. It has to do with our ability to run more complex things when dislocated from where all of our work is set up. Right. So when I'm here at home, I have this giant monitor and I've got two mice and I've got all of this extra stuff. The workplace is tailored for how I work. And when we ask people to then come and hot desk themselves into some place that is not tailored for how they work, their effectiveness individually goes down. So I think that was just, viscerally clear when we're trying to do something of this complexity.
Okay, so tell me about the groundwork you're laying for January and what is happening at the summit.
So we kicked this whole process off with a symposium on creativity and collaboration. We had authors and academics and practitioners and experts in January this year come together and share latest and greatest findings. We wanted to kick this off with that. And so, of course, we're in the experimentation phase. We're recording, collecting data, watching the process, but also collecting and categorizing the outcomes. That data still needs to be filtered and reviewed by our advisors. But the plan for January is to get together in Austin. There's going to be limited tickets available for an in-person event in Austin, as well as online. And at the core, we want to share the results. We want to share them in more detail. We've given you a little bit of a sneak peek of what we've found, but it's also going to be very interesting as more and more academics who do this, who make a profession of studying this and in researching this, apply their lens to it and their angles to it as well. But we're also going to make this quite practical. So based on what we've learned, and this is going to be for those in-person participants, it's at the beginning of the year, right? So you can come and you can begin to set intention, and we do call ourselves the new rules for work. So I think it's implicit in the title that we're going to come up with some new rules that I think people are hungry for. I think people are looking for new ways to work. So it's going to be an opportunity to take the findings and apply them, given what you want to accomplish in 2024. So we can't quite yet announce the keynote speaker, but we're really excited about the keynote speakers and some other people that we've got lined up. Liz, you've helped us in that regard. So we're looking forward to revealing the results, doing some product demos with some of our sponsors, getting AI in on the mix. I know AI is, I think it's one of those things that's causing overwhelm, and people are trying to figure out, how do I incorporate AI? So we're going to introduce some baby steps you can take to bringing AI to your work. Elise, what am I missing? Tacos?
Tacos. You're missing tacos. Yeah. Practical application. And then I think in terms of the sheer content, there are things that we were able to study in the academically constrained sort of environment that we're in. And then there were clearly things that we couldn't touch, because once you get your ethics review board to sign off on your study, you don't get to change it. Mm-hmm. So as we were working through and encountering like clients of ours that we wanted to experiment with, and everybody else who was doing and iterating and innovating around the edges, we thought, ooh, it would be really cool to bring in that, or, ooh, this would be really great if we could only have used AI here. The results change dramatically. So because we're curious and we are at liberty to do whatever we wish as business owners, we went ahead and ran some of those experiments outside of the core study. And so we want to bring some of those things in too. So how does this different when you collaborate in alternate ways? We've been working for a long time on an engagement scale, and how do we help people signal when you come to an event like this, the bits where you get to relax and just listen versus the bit where you're meant to talk to another person versus the bit where you get to play with tech versus the bit where you have to give of yourself to get the result, right? So a lot of that is going to have an opportunity to come together in a really practical way in this January event.
So January will be some inspiration from some keynoters, some results of the experiments that have been done over the last 18 months, and then some additional experiments to test theories. Is that part of it as well?
Some additional opportunities to play with the things we've already experimented with on the side. Yeah. So, and primarily, like the primary takeaway is, how do you use this information to refine how you work for 2024 so that it's in line with your goals and sane, healthy and well for who you are. So your intentionality, and then with the clarity about your own intentionality, how do you bring together teams and rapidly create intentionality around how that team is going to achieve your goals so that you can avoid all of the noise and the bad assumptions and the missteps that are just adding to our overwhelm.
And you are looking for people who are leaders, managers to come in and participate in the event, not just individual workers. I'm a worker and I want to learn a new way to work. This is more about the heart-centered leaders that are coming in to try to help their teams.
Yeah, and I would say specifically leaders in transition, and I don't necessarily mean you're moving to a new job. I mean your job is changing around you. So I'm working with lots of larger clients where their workforces have shrunk by 25%. And so now you need to redefine how it is you work, right? or people working in organizations that they know will not adopt AI and are not human-centered and need to move. Right. So that those kinds of folks, leaders in transition, and by leadership, we mean the action, not the positional title. So people who are ready to step up and set the intention for themselves and their teams.
I love it. All right. So how can people find out more about the summit to register for that? And then the experiment that's tomorrow, I believe you said?
Yeah, we have 2 experiments tomorrow. So if you go to newrulesforwork.com/experiment, you will be able to register for those upcoming experiments, one essentially in the morning, one in the evening. In terms of the summit, we are close to launching the landing page and releasing tickets. We will, I believe you send this out, Liz, to larger community. We can provide the link to that as well. It's going to be under our New Rule website as well. newrulesforwork.com under events is where it will eventually live.
Great. Amazing. Okay. So anything else that you want to share with our community here about either your findings or what's coming up, or who and why they should get involved with this?
It's fun. I think it's a lot of fun to participate in the experiment.
That's
itself.
The best reason.
Yeah. It's short. It's something that we worked. It's going back to a previous point about like we did less. It wasn't like in total that we did less. We did less in the part where I think a lot of people expect to do more, meaning in the experiment itself, we do less, but it's because we did a lot. We did testing. We did rounds of testing, evaluating, oh, what if we did this versus what if we did this? What if we use this platform versus this platform? How's this instruction compared to this instruction? So we just shifted the work to before, but it's you're contributing to science. It's a lot of fun to do. And I think if you're paying attention, you're going to walk away, even just from participating in the experiment, you're going to walk away with something that you can do with your team. You're going to learn something, whether it's about a technology, whether it's about a technique, a way to engage your team. So I think it's valuable to volunteer here.
So speaking of techniques, Elise, will you close us out with Fist to 5?
All right, sure. So Fist to 5 is one of the simplest ways to do check-ins. You can use it in all kinds of environments. One of the places to do it is at the end of a conversation. Hey, everybody, on a scale of 0 being, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I wasted this half an hour on you bozos. This has ruined my day. I'm going to need to go take a break, maybe a nap, maybe a walk, get a cuddle bunny. 2, woohoo, 5, jazz hands. This was really cool. I'm so glad I tuned in. That was exciting. 2, 3, yeah, that was fine. Thanks. On a count of down of 3, either in your video or in the chat, I would love to hear what kind of return you got for your time invested today. 3, 2, 1, show us your Fist to 5. Yay! Oh, look at the double jazz hands.
Oh,
double jazz hands.
Thank you, Nicole. All right,
Awesome.
So that's it.
Yeah, no, that's great. I really appreciate you both coming on and talking about it. I was really excited when I met up with you last week to hear about all of the things that you've been doing and what's going to come for January. So those of you that are in Austin, or those of you that want to come visit us in Austin, please take a look at New Rules for Work and hopefully join this team in January in person to experience it all. I'm going to end the YouTube broadcast now, and then the rest of us in Team CMO can stay in the Zoom and ask questions and have conversation and learn more about what's going on. And those of you who are watching it on the YouTube live stream, please go to teamcmo.com and you can sign up for the free community or see some of the other options. And we hope to see you at this and more in-person events. We anchor on conversation and adventure. That's what Team CMO is all about. We'll see you soon.